Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Daily Villa here at the Global Sports Podcast Network. This is Nyla here checking in with you, and I'm joined by Craig today to review the win recently in the Champions League over Club Brugge at Villa Park. So, Craig, into the quarterfinal of the Champions League, what did you think of the match?
Can you say that one more time, Nala?
Sure. Yeah, we're into the quarterfinal of the UEFA Champions League. How does that feel? It's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
It is. That's why I just wanted you to say it again, to be perfectly honest. It sounds fantastic to be in the quarterfinal. Who would have thought at the beginning of the year we could say we outlasted Liverpool and Manchester City in the Champions League? That is something special. I feel like when you mention those two names, if you outlast them, usually you're champions. So you never know.
Yeah, we're amongst some big names now, but I think I was a bit wary with the draw because it's, to play in Champions League is difficult, but to play against a team twice within the same tournament can be also quite challenging. I think, albeit we got there in the end, but it was a bit of an interesting watch, definitely different from the first time round. But we'll start off here with kind of dissecting the first half of the match. Obviously, coming in, Villa had the 3-1 aggregate advantage coming into the game. But, Club Brugge, credit to them, they put up a bit of a fight. They didn't roll over in the first half. Tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on, the start of the match and how things played out from there.
It's exactly how I kind of expected it would be. I knew it wasn't going to be the most energetic football that we've done all season because Unai's the type of coach that plays his cards to his chest fairly close anyway, especially in the beginning of games. Sometimes it's a bit like pulling hair, if you will. It's like you want us to get into the game a bit quicker. But I knew that was kind of the right call for this because at the end of the day, I knew Bruges were going to come out and they were going to try and play. I knew they were going to come and try and nick that early goal because if they nick that early goal, then there's a chance. They get it 2-0, they force us to penalties and whatever, right? So I knew Unai had to play his cards close to his chest and just kind of absorb some of the play and kind of strangely at Villa Park, give up our possession to Bruges and let them kind of beat themselves into oblivion, really. Let them play, see if we can beat them on the counter-attack because you know yourself, Nyla, when you're playing and your team has the ball for a bulk of it and then someone gets a counter and scores, that's so mind-numbingly painful. And that's kind of, I think, what Unai was trying to go for in the first half. But you can sense Unai's frustration on the sideline. It wasn't quite going to plan. We weren't counter-attacking with any blistering pace. And the chances we did create were few and far between. So it's kind of what I expected of, and I really did get kind of a dull first half, if I'm honest. What did you think?
Yeah, I think you made some really great points. I think Unai Emery is definitely the one to really show the respect for opponents. You can argue maybe we showed them a little bit too much respect at times, but I think, that's never a bad thing to have in a manager. You don't want to underestimate teams or, come out guns blazing and then they just roll over you in the first few minutes. So I think that was, typical Emery. Let's respect the opponent. And, if people weren't watching the match and you've just, followed along with the stats, I mean, if you just look at the possession stats and, Bruges is almost double Villa, it's just no context. It's such a crazy thing to look at. But obviously it did not kind of reflect how the game turned out and how that went. But it was just very not what we're used to, I think, from a Villa side in terms of the contrasting stats there. But, trust the process, and we did. And we saw things take a big turn in the 16th minute. Martinez played an amazing ball into Rashford, which, in turn put him in a position where the defender last man back had to drag him down and got the red card. So they were down to 10 men. And I think, arguably our first solid chance on goal was the free kick from Tielemans. But how did you feel that red card changed the game? Or did it not change the game enough for you? What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny. My initial reaction was the fact that I understood exactly why he's brought the player down, because I think if Rashford scores that and we go, it would have been 4-1 at that point on goal difference overall on the two legs. That's game over for them. So would you rather be 11v11 trying to build now a distance of 3 goals at a very lively Villa Park, or do you want to play with 10 men against an 11? And credit to Club Brugge, when the red card went, I don't think the play changed automatically a lot. One of the things I definitely saw, which I thought was very impressive, that when they were playing out the back, the keeper, Mignolet it was, right? Mignolet was acting as a right centre-back. So when they were playing out the back, he was so far out his goal, ready to build out that possession. So essentially, it didn't take anything away when they were playing out of the back. Once he'd released it, he got into that right centre-back role. And it was essentially like 11 versus 10 with the way he was coming off his line. So credit to them for the way they adapted after that red card, because there were chances that they could have done to still score when it was 10 versus 11. So I think that was another thing that added to the frustration from Unai on the sideline. You saw, even when we were playing well in the second half, he didn't celebrate any of the goals. I think he was just so peed off that he just didn't get what he wanted out of the game. And I love that, to be perfectly honest. I love the fact that our boss demands so much of our players. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been getting at on social media recently. The amount of people that we draw a fine line as Villa fans. We've got so many people that criticise the team too much, even when we're successful. We've got some that won't criticise because we were in the Championship not too long ago. Like, let's forget that now. Let's build on what we've got. Do you know what I mean? So I think you can be critical without being unrealistic as well. So it's a case of, yes, so I don't think the red card changed too much. I feel that we got but the second half, and I'm sure we'll allude to it in a bit, made a huge difference with some of the personnel he brought on.
Absolutely. Credit again to Club Brugge. I mean, to go down to 10 men and still kind of have that solid, kind of hard to break down grit to them, I think is just testament to their manager being able to make those changes on the fly. The modern day goalkeeper, if you will, stepping up to kind of fulfill the duties in the back line, and just, I think, the hard work of the players. Easily, if that happens so early on in a match, your team can just kind of fold. I mean, you're already down 3-1 on the aggregate score. Now you've got 70 something minutes to go with a player down away. The odds were not stacked in their favor, but yet, they still put out a good effort. And I mean, that was essentially the first half in a nutshell. It was Villa trying to, get on those counters, but not really finding any clear-cut chances. Club Brugge, holding a lot of possession, having some chances of their own as well. Were you surprised by the lack of attacking threat from Villa early on? Did you kind of expect them to be a little bit more forward, a little bit less conservative, if you will, in how they played?
I weren't surprised by the conservative nature. I was surprised by the fact that I feel like, based on what I saw, or the lack of what I saw, and the frustration, as I've mentioned, about Unai on the sideline, I think the goal was to just soak up the pressure and hit on the counter. And we did the first part without doing the latter. So
Right.
we didn't get in behind their back line anywhere near enough. And I think we kind of have to tie that down to the fact that we were defending a little too deep. So when it come to the counter, Watkins was on his own too often, with the gaps between him, Rodgers, McGinn, and Rashford were too great. So when it became on the counter, it was more like a 1-on-4. And Ollie Watkins, I think, is a great forward, but against the back line of Bruges on his own, I don't think he was going to get enough. We needed to get our next unit up the field more in order to connect with him. I don't think we need to defend as deep as we were. I would have preferred more of a mid block than the low block that we were kind of executing. So, and I think that's what was addressed at half time, and we kind of got into a groove once we started playing our way then.
Yeah, I think the low block, mid block is a really great point. I mean, you're sitting in a low block and you win the ball back, you've got miles to go, to get to the other end, and you have to do that as a unit. Whereas the mid block, at least, you're sitting a bit higher up the field. There's probably less chance of the gaps between the positional lines as well. So, I mean, it's glad to see that we're able to make those changes, on the fly mid-match, and for that to produce the results that it did. We will move on to the second half, but before we get there, we've got a new sponsor, so let's listen to the message they have for us.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
All right, I might have to get Ollie Watkins a subscription because Unai Emery made a few changes in the second half. Obviously, Ollie Watkins being one of them. He indicated in the post-match interview that there might have been, injury concern with him, but he wasn't sure what was going on with Watkins. So that's why I said I get him that supplement, because maybe it'll fix him right back up. But in terms of some major impactful substitutions, we saw Leon Bailey and Marco Asensio come on. 5 minutes into them coming on the pitch, Asensio scores from a Bailey assist. Craig, walk me through this goal.
Well, it was that basically tailor-made, wasn't it? It's a case of they said when Tammy played for us that don't fall in love with a loanee, right? And I have to admit it now, I fell in love with 3 of them now: Rashford, Asensio, and Desai. We have pulled off some really good coups there, to the point where it might be too good, where the fact other teams might now look into pinch them when they come for sale. But I go on a little bit of a tyrant there. The goal itself, though, was very, very well worked. Happy to see Leon being involved more in the attacking game, because we've mentioned how last season he was phenomenal. This season it's been very stop-start for the lad, and I think in recent weeks he showed a lot of improvement. And the fact that it seems like any one of our players now, Rashford in particular, can find Asensio in and around that box. I just think Asensio's runs are so clever, and it makes it so easy for the players like Leon Bailey, who got the assist in this game. And yeah, it was very well worked. Good finish. And Asensio, already thinking about getting his name on the back of my kid's shirt, that's for sure.
Honestly, he's racking up the stats. Get him the ball, and he puts it away. I think that's such a great quality to have. If someone's on the ball and they're scoring as often as he has in the minutes that he's on the pitch, is just, we might have to gatekeep him or something, or tell him to tone it down, because like you said, people are gonna start looking, and we don't want him to leave.
Yeah.
But then 7 minutes later, Ian Maatsen gets his first for Villa as well, off of, they said deflection. I don't know I don't think it took that big of a deflection. If I'm him, I'm definitely celebrating that and taking claim. But he was able to to get on the score sheet as well. And you mentioned beforehand, a bit of a tactical adjustment at halftime. Do you feel like that played into that second goal at all?
Absolutely. I think the two subs coming on obviously made such a massive difference. The fact that I do think we pressed higher up the field. We're never going to be a team that high presses. We're not going to press right in your face because we don't have the personnel for that. McGinn's not going to high press you. Rashford's not going to high press you. So it's a case of the players we have suit the middle block. Do you know what I mean? So I think the fact that we press those players up the field a little bit higher, so it was more about the case of the units being closer together now. And I think they were able to combine and play together, and that's what really helped us in the second half.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of off the movement as well that has been happening. I mean, I think first half Rashford, he made a lot of runs, but just wasn't getting on the ball. And I think in second half we saw him get on the ball more just because the ball was finally finding him because we were able to get up further up the pitch as well. And so we'll circle back round to Asensio once more as he gets his second goal in the 61st minute. Again, like I said, great stats for him. That's 7 goals in 8 games. And, we've kind of mentioned how much we love him. So end of the season approaches and Villa looks to sign him permanently. Like what would you do? What are your thoughts on that?
You got to go all out to get him.
Yeah.
You really do. And I think the fact that listening to his interviews and the way he seems to interact with players after scoring goals, assists, and that sort of thing, it seems like he's found a club where he's having fun again. So I don't think it's necessarily a case. I think it was Carragher that said recently, and I'm usually a big fan of Jamie Carragher, but he came out and said that he's too big for Aston Villa and he should be going to a bigger and better club. I don't think that's the case. I think he understands the path Unai is trying to send this club on and wants to be a part of it. And I think that's the big thing with players like Martinez, Ollie Watkins, Morgan Rogers. They've bought into the story, if you will, that knowing that we're not, well, I say we're not challenging for Champions League this year. We never know yet. But realistically, you don't expect us to be making it much further in the Champions League. Let's say that. Getting to the quarterfinals is an amazing achievement. Not trying to stifle us in any way. We should go for it completely. But it's understanding what could happen in 3 to 5 years, not necessarily what's happening now. And I think these players want to be part of that journey and really help push us through. And you know what it's like as a player yourself. When you have a coach that believes in you, it makes playing again fun. And I think it's a case of, like Rashford, for example, looks like a completely different person since he came down to the Villa. And I don't think he's necessarily, and I hope I'm wrong, I don't think he's necessarily going to use this as a stepping stone in order to get back to Man United or to table that move to a Barcelona or something like that. I think once someone showed him that trust and he starts enjoying playing again, like I feel like he's doing now, I think these players are going to sign across the dotted line. So I think we have an extremely good chance of signing Asensio, but I think it needs to be done like behind the scenes early now. Then wait until the summer when people will start sniffing around his agent then and going, have you signed a new deal? What are you looking for? Have you thought about the fact? Because here's the thing, we might not get Champions League again next year. We're trying to aim for that top 5, which with co-efficiency, it looks like 5th, maybe Champions League as well this season. But we might not get it. So we have to get those players in now to, again, believe the story, believe the hype, believe the journey that we're going on and get them signed now while they're happy.
Yeah, I think you summed it up so well. I think what Emery, and management and everything that the club is trying to create is just more than a football team that just rocks up and just, batters people. It's just more than, like you said, Rashford coming over from Man United to Villa, completely different player. And you know what? He's still playing. He's still getting minutes in Premier League. He's still competing, with the top teams in the Premier League. But guess what? He's bonus minutes in Champions League, FA Cup. It's you can have what you have and more at Villa, and I think that's how I'd market it. That's the selling point. I mean, you can have a strong manager, very dedicated manager. You have, a positive climate that allows you to succeed as a player that fits your strengths and excels, and you still get the perks of, being in a top league, competing with the best, and, all the extra bits that come with it. So I think you're spot on in terms of the bigger picture rather than, you can have all of this now, but, maybe you don't get on with your teammates. Maybe, you don't get on with the manager, and, life in general outside of football, outside of the matches, is a bit bland. But you can come to Villa where everyone's alive and having a great time and we're winning. So, hopefully that is the selling point, and hopefully we do get that Champions League spot, and that can just be another tool to pull in the players that we want. We'll have one last break quickly, and then we'll move on to what the quarterfinals might look like, and we'll reflect on some player performances from this past match.
Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at the Global Sports Podcast Network. Zencastr makes it easy to start a high-quality podcast built for growth from day one. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns, Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description below to learn more about Zencastr.
All right, Craig, I've got some good news. Villa are now joined in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League by Barcelona, Dortmund, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Arsenal, Real Madrid. How does it feel to be amongst these teams?
It's great, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing, the fact that you basically named the elite of the elite. When you take away like Liverpool and Manchester City, those are the top teams that you face in Europe. It's a far cry from playing Rotherham on a Friday night, where we have come from. So it is fantastic. I read on Twitter earlier from Ian Taylor, like, just enjoy the ride, and let's ride it as long as we can, but enjoy it while we're doing it. Don't get upset if it goes wrong from now on, because this is amazing achievement from this team. And the fact that why not go out there? We've beat Bayern Munich. Okay, we've beat the likes of Manchester City at their strongest last season, Arsenal at their strongest last season. We've beat these players on a day. We've added great players to our roster. So we've added players with high experience in Asensio, who's won a Champions League. We've got Martinez, who's won a World Cup. We've got players that know how to win things now. So why not go for it? And we have so many players that I've referred to on previous podcasts, and some people might take it as an insult, but big time Charlies. But what I mean by that is the fact that they really come out in big games. And not necessarily that, like, a Martinez, for example, doesn't do well against, say, like a Fulham or so on, but they really do. They excel when they're playing against the best and with the best. So why not go for it? Why not enjoy this moment, but really, you kind of mentioned it earlier as well, showing a bit of respect to our teams. Yeah, that's all well and good. Let's just not give them too much respect. Let's not look at them in awe. Mm-hmm. We're Aston Villa. Do you want to bet against us?
Absolutely. And I think we've made the case where teams need to show that same respect to us. And if they don't want to, that's cool. We'll get Asensio the ball and he'll put it in the back of the net. But yeah, so Villa are now set to face PSG in the quarterfinals. I know we talked about a lot of the big names, the remaining teams in the tournament, but how do you feel about this matchup?
I watched PSG versus Liverpool, and I was very impressed with the way they played. they've gone away from their previous model of signing the elite player like your Neymars, your Messis, and everything like that. They're now looking more like a team. And I think it sounds crazy to say, but I think they've got more chance of winning the Champions League since they've adapted this model than they do now when they had the likes of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. Because I think they actually play more as a team. It's not filtered through those players.
Mm-hmm.
And the big advantage that PSG has on, say, like an Aston Villa is the fact that they'll go away and they'll play Bordeaux or someone like that the previous week, and they know they can rest players, and then they come to Villa. They can put their full team out there, whereas we play, say, like a Chelsea, a Man City, a Nottingham Forest, any of these players that are in form at the moment, or just good teams in general, it makes it a lot harder for us to turn up, say, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night and really take it to a team. So, and I'm not going to use that as an excuse because I do think PSG, out of the remaining 7 teams that are in the tournament, I probably only would have picked Inter ahead of them to take on, if I'm honest. I think we would stand a good chance of beating Inter. I don't think Serie A is anywhere near the high level that it was before. So, but I'm happy to have PSG. I think it's a good opportunity for us to play against a good team without fear, though, to be able to go out there, take it to them, and see how it goes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think, you know, I was hoping not Arsenal because I just any non-prem team. That's the thing with the tournaments. It's like you don't want to play a league opponent. Like, give me someone new. It's a continent-wide tournament. So, yeah, I'm glad we got a League One team, and I'm excited to see how we approach it in terms of the tactics, the 11. Hopefully, everyone will be ready to go. I know that I mentioned earlier, Watkins might have a preventative or something going on with an injury. Asensio had told Emery he was 100% ready to start, but we saw him subbed on in this past match. So hopefully he'll be ready to start from the first minute in this matchup. But I think it's an exciting time. There's no pressure on us, really. All we can do is put on a good performance and see what happens from there. So with that, do you think anything will particularly play up as a strength as we take on PSG, or do you see any players particularly excelling to PSG's style of play?
Well, I think Asensio's involvement with PSG will be very informative in
Yeah,
practice.
he's your little spy.
Yeah, a little bit, like trying to give us some glorified information. I do think PSG, after beating Liverpool and doing well in Ligue 1, as well as doing well in the Champions League, will look at this game as in probably the easiest team left in the Champions League. That's the way they'll be looking at it. They've got fans that are kind of the French Man United, who are very unrealistic at times, even when their club are doing so well. They would expect to walk over us. So I'm hoping that sense of arrogance will play against them. And I'm also happy that, correct me, we get the come home game. The second leg is at Villa Park, so I think that's going to be a big KL. If we can keep the game in the first game close, even just a narrow loss, I'd be happy with, because I do think Villa Park, we stand a really good chance. So if we can get a draw or maybe a 1-0 loss, something along those lines, and go into Villa Park, I'd be quietly confident.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think the order of the matches in terms of away and then home will be good as well. I think Martinez will be big for us in these matches. I'm really excited to see some more link-ups that have been emerging in the last recent matches. Particularly, I feel like Rashford and Asensio have been linking up quite well. So I'm excited to see that to continue and develop. It'll be interesting to see what our backline will look like. But I think it's just a great stage for, Morgan Rogers to showcase himself. and see where we go from there.
100%. And also, I can't wait to see the reaction Martinez gets in France.
Oh, yeah. That will definitely be an interesting one. We'll have to see. Yeah, he's a character. He's always got intakes up his sleeve. So it'll be interesting to see the response to him, but also his response to whatever the response is. And I'm sure it'll be a never-ending cycle.
100%.
Well, Craig, any last thoughts on this past match, this victory over Club Brugge, with Villa into the quarterfinal against PSG now?
Just that it was a professional performance, and the fact that you've spoke about it 100, like so many times on this podcast, the fact of the ability to keep clean sheets, and now we've had 2 in a row, and we did it this weekend without even the mighty Olsen in goal. So so we have to remember that. So it was a good professional performance. We took care of business through the quarterfinal. In the Champions League, we've only a little scare of Ollie Watkins with the injury. We saw Pau Torres make his return as well, which was massive to see. The fact that now we have the choice of Konza, Mings, Disasi, and Torres in the back. Once we start getting those 4 clicking, we'll be golden with the likes of Luca D, Matty Cash, and Garcia as well. Our backline is looking a lot stronger, and let's hope we can keep them fit, because this is going to be an important run for the club now, with like Preston coming up as well in the FA Cup, which I've always said I've always wanted to see Villa win the FA Cup.
It's a great draw for us, yeah.
It's a massive draw, so hopefully we can rest some players but not take them too lightly, because the next 2 games right before our Champions League game of Brighton and Forest are going to be really big, important games, because they're both close to us in the table. It's going to be make or break for getting that 4th or 5th spot. So it's going to be a tiring few weeks, but hopefully it's some rewarding ones as well.
Yeah. And, we'll get there when we get there. And now we're just riding this high into international break. And we'll have those monsters in the closet waiting for us after international break.
Exactly.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining Craig and I today on Daily Villa at the Global Sports Podcast Network. Please let us know your thoughts. Who are you excited to see excel at PSG in the next round of the Champions League? And let us know what you thought about this past win over Club Brugge. Leave a comment on our socials. They're all listed in the description. This has been a Global Sports Podcast Network production. Thanks for listening again, and up the Villa.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.